Don't you just wish you could wake up one day and be Jeff Bezos? The truth is that many people would want to live the lifestyle of Jeff's billion-dollar company has been able to afford him. Touring around the world to see epic sights on a superyacht, or jetting from one scenic location to the next, all while making more money than you could probably ever spend in one lifetime. Well, what if I told you that you could live that lifestyle? Or at the very least, you could get some advice from an extremely savvy serial investor that could change your life for the better. The truth is that Jeff Bezos, one of the most brilliant businessmen of our time, has actually given out the blueprint for how to build an empire the way he has through investing. The only thing left to do is to apply it in your life. But before we get into the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to get more great content just like this. Tip number 8, adapt. Jeffrey Preston Jorgensen, more commonly known as Jeff Bezos, is one of the richest entrepreneurs and investors in history, thanks to founding his tech company Amazon, which is now worth more than $400 billion thanks to its amazing success. If you don't already know, Jeff started with a simple idea in 1994, that he could use an online platform for products to reach consumers, in this case books, for a reasonable price that ensured they would come back for more. He did so well that he expanded the business, which grew from year to year, allowing it to balloon into the widely recognized online success it is today. In early 2020, a virus began to spread throughout the world, and as a side effect, there was a slowing or in some cases halting of business operations to help combat a health issue the world knew little about. Even considering the internal operations of the multi-billion-dollar company, this was at first a very difficult thing for management and staff to cope with. Regardless, measures were put into place very quickly to ensure the company's productivity was not affected, and Jeff Bezos made more investments in his own company where he could, which helped to increase efficiency and ensure the business did well. Ultimately, the best advice here is to understand that you should make investments based on your willingness to adapt, as it possibly could prove to be very profitable for you. Tip number 7, take feedback. There is a reason Amazon has been ranked constantly as one of the top companies that give excellent customer service. One of the reasons is that Jeff Bezos has relied on customer feedback to build a better experience for those very customers. Jeff understands it is important to know what the customers think, and only then will you have a constant pulse on your business to decide on where improvements can be made. Research is an important part of deciding what is important. It is said that 95% of customers who have bad or unsatisfactory experiences are more likely to broadcast this fact and discourage others from purchasing a particular product or service. Consider the mission statement of Jeff's company, which states in part, "We aim to be Earth's most customer-centric company." This alone demonstrates how Jeff was able to shift the focus back to the customers with his company to be able to make a business that is also willing to adjust and adapt, based not just on market trends, but on general consensus among customers that are willing to state how they felt to help improve the overall service. Amazon was one of the first companies to implement visible and accessible customer reviews. They set the trend for making the user experience something that can be easily found on the same site that is selling the product. One of the ways Jeff has been able to engineer this level of customer feedback is that the Amazon website is built for customers to easily make reviews and even communicate with others who have purchased the same product. This builds a network of people who can then rate a product, and this rating either gives the product more value or can take it away. Jeff has now helped to empower consumers at an individual level, and they are more likely to leave reviews as they know their opinions on a particular product or service are being heard. Jeff Bezos has described his company's main focus as user centricity and placing the customer as the main focus on the company. Thus, the customer's needs are heavily prioritized to increase transparency and trust between the company and their user base. Thus, when you are making a decision about an investment, it is important to consider customer feedback and satisfaction about that service or product before you make a final decision. Tip number 6, stick to your philosophy. When it comes to investing, one thing billionaire Jeff Bezos recommends is to stick to your philosophy. This is the theory or general attitude that will guide your main behaviors. Bezos has stated the reason that he has been so successful is due to the fact that his philosophy was clear and focused. even from the first day of embarking on his first business venture. This tunnel vision helped him to remain focused regardless of the obstacles in his way. Similarly, you will have to choose which philosophy works best for you and stick with it. For example, you can be an activist investor by investing in an underperforming company with the aim of making its value appreciate over time. Some investors bet on change, while others are willing to back the things that will remain steady and unchanging. At the end of the day, there are many different philosophies that you may come to understand and appreciate. However, it is best to follow one that will make a difference in your life instead of trying a new method every week and realizing it is getting you almost nowhere. Think about the companies that have most inspired you and how different investment styles have benefited the principal investors of these companies. From there, you can start a list that will include those you are most comfortable with or those that seem the most practical to you. Always do your research as best you can before you take the plunge. Do you have a philosophy already? Leave a comment for us down below. Tip number 5, think long term. There are many other successful investors who may not mention this tip right away. The thing about investing is that very often it takes time for you to see any returns on your investments. Jeff Bezos mentions this as a crucial tip in any investing venture. It is important to understand any changes you make today will affect things only much later, like in a few years. Any returns that you might see now is a direct result of actions that were taken a year or two ago. Thus, thinking long-term can be a huge advantage when considering how you invest and how you review your investments. Tip number 4, weigh the pros and cons. In 1994, Jeff Bezos was assigned the task of finding new business opportunities on what was then a virtually brand new tool, the internet. He researched many different areas but eventually settled on the area of books and realized no one could access real-time information about books that weren't available, as the retailer would then have to go back to the manufacturer to find out whether or not the book was available. It was here the genius entrepreneur found an opportunity to create a site that offered convenience and increased usability by building a website that would be able to bring the manufacturer's merchandise straight to the consumer by cutting out the middleman retailer. He also took into consideration that within the last year, internet usage had increased by more than 2,000%, which was a massive uptick indicating there was no stopping this whirlwind of an invention. He could easily see how his idea could land smack in the middle of a technological revolution, and that he could possibly be at the center of it. Of course, there was no way to know for sure, and this would require a ton of work. This is why when Jeff later went back to his boss with his idea, his boss's only response was to say that it would be better for someone who wasn't working to take on that task. Still, the idea could not leave his mind. Eventually, less than a week later, he then went home to draft a pros versus cons list with his wife. Ultimately, he decided that in his old age, he did not want to have any regrets where this idea was concerned. And so he left his job in 1994 to start the business that he felt passionately about, right in his garage, called Amazon. If at the end of the day Jeff took all things into consideration, then you can certainly do the same. How much are you willing to give up for your conviction? More importantly, what risks are you really comfortable with, and what is the time frame that you have in mind? Always consider things in context, what your real goals are, and how you are willing to reach them through your investments. Tip number 3, be curious. Call it imagination. Call it thinking outside of the box. When it comes to investing, things will be anything but easy for you. Jeff Bezos, however, has some advice on how to get around things. He tells people to be curious and encourages us to give it lots of time in order for people to then be able to think outside of the box and come up with innovative solutions to challenges you might face on a day-to-day basis. You might have to take a roundabout path in which you make changes along the way to develop the best formula to investing. Tip number 2, be passionate. Having passion refers to a strong feeling or emotion that you might have about any particular investment. Once you have done your research and looked at what you believe are viable options, stay your course and stick with the investments you feel most passionate about. It will be very tempting to get distracted by the latest business news update listing, the next top 10 companies on the rise, and what you should invest in them now, or the hottest stocks that you need to get a hold of. But ensure before you embark on any investment that you have taken everything into consideration with your research, and then have passion to start your investment without any regrets or hesitation. Tip number 1, embrace failure. Jeff Bezos himself has said he has made billions of dollars worth of failures while also being successful. This might seem almost impossible from one of the richest men alive, but it's a point he makes reference to often, especially when referring to investing. There is simply no way to create an all-encompassing safety net that will protect you 24/7 from the investment risks you are taking. The reality is that investing is about taking risks, and sometimes those risks become actual losses. However, the most important thing to remember is that you never give up. When you do get it right, maybe once, maybe a few times, these times might make all the difference for you in terms of returns on your investments. Thus, it is important to already adjust your mindset to the fact that you will have failures. You are not seeking them out. Rather, the nature of investing itself is not a risk-averse, and sometimes you might feel the consequences of when things do not go as you might have hoped. Yet still, you dust yourself off and get ready for the next venture, understanding that eventually success will be yours as long as you have learned from your failures. And there you have it, the top tips curated from multi-billionaire investor Jeff Bezos himself. As he once said, work hard, have fun, and make history. And it might be easy enough eventually for you to do the first two, but the last part involves implementing the same investment tips he has followed in order to make that mark on the world the way you want to through investing. Don't forget to like and subscribe and check out more videos like this here. I will see you in the next one.